Hi everyone, I'm Nicholas Tutora. Welcome to Tutora Time. Jen Psaki's press conferences are really a nightmare to have to watch. I mean, the woman just babbles on and makes no sense whatsoever when she talks. If you listen to Jen, I'm sorry for you, but if you listen to Jen Psaki, you hear her try to string together a bunch of descriptive words that don't really mean anything. They ask her about the plans that are coming up and what the administration is doing, and she says ridiculous things like, we're gathering people together to meet, to go over ideas, and we'll be addressing that.
And we certainly remain confident that we will continue to be able to provide the supply that states need to vaccinate people in their states. As we noted yesterday, they've been hard at work throughout the congressional recess, making calls to Democratic chairs and Republican ranking members of the relevant committees.
Just telling me that somebody is making a phone call doesn't really do anything. It's not actually a policy, Jen. There's never any actual substance being talked about. I could say the same thing. What am I going to do to solve the economic problems? Well, I'm going to meet with somebody and we're going to sit down and we're going to discuss it. And I'm meeting with relevant people and, we're going to do that. And then tomorrow we're talking with somebody else about something, but we're not actually doing anything.
These efforts will continue, of course, when members return to Washington. And as I noted yesterday, the president looks forward to welcoming members to the White House. And as we have that locked in, we'll provide more details to all of you.
The president is looking forward to meeting with these people when they get back, and we're setting that up too. And when we have it locked in, we're going to give you the details. Again, that doesn't mean anything. You could say that about your Aunt Matilda who's dropping by. One of the other things that Jen said today is about the COVID vaccine. Kamala Harris is working on that. That's dynamite. So we know there's going to be a disaster there. Okay. Kamala's working very hard to make sure there is equity and that people of color receive the vaccine first. I may be old-fashioned, but isn't that racist to single out people on the basis of their color in terms of who's getting the vaccine?
She highlighted best practices to ensure equity remains at the cornerstone of our vaccination effort.
What are they basically telling you? If you're white, it's okay, you could run a higher risk of getting the virus and it's not that big of a concern?
She's also in Chicago today focusing on vaccine equity. In Chicago alone, the CDC will invest $33 million to support efforts to increase vaccine distribution and access with a specific focus on communities of color.
This ridiculous idea of equity, nobody owes anybody anything in this life, and certainly people who are alive today are not guilty and do not have to pay back things that happened in other generations. They're going to punish you for something that you never did.
The CDC will invest $33 million to support efforts to increase vaccine distribution and access with a specific focus on communities of color.
$33 million. I wonder how much it's costing on the border to house all the people. And they're putting in a whole $33 million for citizens in Chicago. They're not too concerned about the gun violence in Chicago. They just want to make sure every time somebody gets gunned down, they've been properly vaccinated first. I love when the Biden administration talks about these COVID vaccines. They love to always say shots in the arms.
That we've reached 150 million shots in arms since entering government.
We've got 1 million shots in the arms, or 10 million shots in the arms. They always stress in the arm.
That we've reached 150 million shots in arms since entering government.
Where are we supposed to think about it? In their butt? They keep stressing in the arm. It's very important for us to know that people are getting the injection in the arm. I guess that's Joe Biden's idea of an expert. They know how to find your arm. And of course, as they say, people of color are getting the vaccine first. Well, look, I have color. I'm kind of like this beige. There's a little bit of pink in there. It's like a beige olive thing going on. I have two examples of people with no color, both sitting on my right and my left here. You can see right through them. They're transparent people of no color. It's such a ridiculous and offensive term. It also shows you how bizarre the human mind is. Back in the 60s, the term colored people was considered offensive, and I guess rightfully so, because there was so much discrimination and things like that that was linked to that term. But yet linguistically, people of color is the same exact thing. If that doesn't show you how manipulated people can be, I don't know what will. People of color versus colored people. It's the same exact thing. People of America versus Americans. It just shows you that the human mind is really not that evolved. I would say if the human race is a human being, like one individual human, then we're about 14 years old because we're still very confused by things like colors. So let's look at some of what Jen Psaki has to say.
Funding for transportation projects can typically be allocated through two different types of grants, and we expect a mix to be discussed.
This footage of Pete Buttigieg, our transportation secretary, really says it all. Here he is pretending to ride his bike, pulling up in the SUV, having his staff unload his bike so he could ride up to the building to appear environmentally friendly. That sums up the Green New Deal perfectly. It's all for show, it's all for the cameras, and behind the scenes, they're just using the same old gas and oil they always have. But they want you to stop, and they want you to believe that they're holier than thou. It's what happens when liars are put in charge of the country. Jen Psaki is not very bright. She's simply just reading from the script and never actually answers any question. And because the media is all bought and paid for, she doesn't have to worry about answering a question. She's walking into a nice, cushy atmosphere where nobody other than Fox News is ever going to give her any problems. And Jen displays all the behavior of the typical leftist. She avoids answers, makes up race-baiting issues, and condescends. The leadership that's going on in the Biden administration is no leadership at all. It's a real disaster. So sit tight, folks, because things are only going to get worse under Biden and his entourage. They don't know what they're doing. They're a bunch of spoiled children looking to make their claim to fame based on tearing the country apart. Don't buy into their narrative, folks. Live as a free person. I'm Nicholas Tutora, and I'll talk to you again soon on Tutora Time.